Welcome back to Organized, the Business Law Breakdown, the podcast where we break down corporate law, shareholder battles, and why some CEOs would rather torch their own company than sell it. I'm Professor Seth C. Orenberg, and today we're talking about hostile takeovers. What happens when someone tries to buy a company without the board's permission? Well, the board can enact several defensive measures. The poison pill is the boardroom's nuclear option, and this is corporate warfare. On the one side is the acquiring company trying to take control, and on the other side is a target company's board pulling every legal trick to try to stay independent. In the middle are shareholders watching the chaos unfold, trying to figure out if they're about to get rich or go broke. So what is a hostile takeover? It turns out most mergers happen peacefully. A company makes an offer from executive to executive, and it goes up to the board negotiates, everyone signs contracts, shakes hands, and flies off to celebrate in Cabo in their private jet. But a hostile takeover is when the buyer goes around the board and takes their offer straight to shareholders. You know, those owners that don't control the company? Well, if you buy enough stock, you do control the company because you can replace the board. And a hostile takeover changes the whole game, because instead of negotiating, the board fights for its life. In general, a hostile takeover means the board gets kicked out. It's a really cushy job for a lot of people, and that private jet is pretty slick, so people tend to like to stick with it. So how does the board fight hostile takeovers? Corporate law gives boards a lot of weapons to fight off an unwanted takeover, and there's also some law that restricts their ability to use it. The most famous is called the poison pill. Yes, a metaphorical poison pill. This is not a cup of hemlock if someone loses a shareholder vote. The name actually comes from Cold War espionage. In the Cold War, spies carried actual poison pills, cyanide. They got caught, they'd swallow one or break a tooth and swallow the capsule, instead of being captured and tortured and forced to confess state secrets. So in corporate law, poison pill is a defensive mechanism. And what it does is it makes a hostile takeover too expensive to pull off. So how do poison pills work? There are different variations, but here's the basic idea. A company issues special stock rights to all shareholders except the hostile bidder. If the hostile bidder buys too much stock, the poison pill triggers, and the other shareholders get to buy extra shares at a massive discount. And if you got to buy shares at 10 cents on the dollar, you'd probably do it. Suddenly there's more shares, and getting to 50% ownership becomes much more difficult. And as the hostile buyer buys up more of these shares, the shares get cheaper and cheaper for others to buy, meaning the dilution continues and continues, making it harder and harder to actually acquire enough of the company to gain control. Poison pill translation: bidder has to spend way more money to take over a company. Usually kills the deal. Do you remember Twitter before it was X? Do you remember when Elon Musk tried to buy Twitter? This was in around 2022. At first, Twitter's board freaked out and adopted a poison pill, because they probably realized that Elon really likes firing people, especially directors of companies he purchases. They basically said, if Elon Musk tries to buy more than 15% of Twitter, we'll let everyone else buy more shares at half price. It didn't stop him. Elon Musk famously didn't care. He offered so much money that eventually Twitter's board gave up and sold to what's now X. So poison pills actually generally work, unless the buyer is crazy, rich, and very determined. There are other defenses against hostile takeovers. Boards don't always rely on poison pills. They've got other weapons too, like the White Knight defense, the Pac-Man defense, and staggered boards. The White Knight is what I like to call the anyone but you sounds great strategy. The board doesn't want to sell to a hostile bidder, so they find another buyer. I mentioned Time Warner earlier. You've heard of Time Warner. They're a merged company now, but Paramount tried to buy them in 1989-ish. Paramount tried a hostile takeover of Time Inc., but Time's board hated the idea. I think it was a bad culture fit. So they merged with Warner Communications to create Time Warner. So they sold the company, just not to the person who wanted it. That's the White Knight defense. Warner came into their rescue. So then there's the Pac-Man defense. I call this the reverse Uno card. Yeah, it's named after the arcade game. It's when the target company turns around and tries to buy the company that's attacking them. You know those ghosts that are chasing you around? You get the big pill and you flip around and eat them all up. Let's talk about Martin Marietta versus Bendix from 1982. Bendix tried a hostile takeover of Martin Marietta, but Martin Marietta fought back. Instead of getting taken over, they started buying Bendix's stock. So this is the Pac-Man move, right? Someone's trying to chase you down. You get the big pill, you flip around and you start eating up the ghosts that are chasing after you. So now both companies are trying to take each other over at the same time. The result was actually that both companies almost destroyed themselves. A third company stepped in to buy them both. I'm not sure how well that one worked. The third is staggered boards, which I'll call the slow burn defense. A staggered board is when a company's board is elected in pieces rather than at all once. So you would have a third elected in 1 year, a third in the second year, and a third in the third year. Why does this matter? Well, it matters because a hostile bidder can't just replace the whole board in one election. They have to win multiple elections over several years. It takes 3 years to replace a board. May not be worth doing it in the first place because you have to deal with people you hate for quite a while. An example is Airgas versus Air Products in 2010. Air Products tried a hostile takeover of Airgas. They won a shareholder vote to remove some directors. But because Airgas had a staggered board, they couldn't take control fast enough. So Air Products gave up. So yeah, staggered boards, they work. But there's some interesting research about how they lower the value of stock. The big debate is, should hostile takeovers be allowed at all? Some people love hostile takeovers. They say it keeps boards accountable. Others hate them because it says outsiders wreck a company for a quick profit. So here's my quick version of both sides. The case for hostile takeovers is they stop bad managers from entrenching themselves. They create competition, which results in better run companies and higher quality products. And the shareholders make a ton of money. An example of that is RJR Nabisco from 1988. A hostile takeover turned one of the biggest bidding wars in history into a $25 billion cash out for shareholders. On the other hand, there's a case against hostile takeovers. They force short-term decisions. They can wreck long-term strategy. And some companies fight back with shady tactics. An example of that is Yahoo versus Microsoft. Remember Yahoo? From 2008. Microsoft offered to buy Yahoo for $44 billion. Yahoo's board rejected the offer, said it was too low. Years later, Yahoo sold for just $4.8 billion. So maybe the board should have taken the deal? You know, boards can have biases too. So can boards really stop mergers through hostile takeovers? Yeah, sometimes. Poison pills, staggered boards, Pac-Man defenses, White Knights, they work. Sometimes. But other times? If a buyer is rich enough and determined enough, nothing stops them. And Elon Musk proved it. In the next episode, we'll talk about what happens when the board and the CEO start fighting with each other. But for now, I'm Professor Seth C. Ornberg, and this is Organized, the Business Law Breakdown. I'll see you next time.